there's been a lot of thinking about virtual worlds, not just Animal Crossing, but virtual worlds in general, and what we can kind of glean from having a steady kind of one foot in two worlds, so to speak, and thinking about the things that we see that are similar and the things that we see that are different, and what of those might be game oriented and what of those might be sociality oriented. And so to really try to understand why Animal Crossing, for example, has become so massively popular in such a short amount of time. And I think that's, I mean, if there's one guiding question, it would be just like, what's going on, right? It's just lifting the hood and looking at how are people relating to each other through the game, and how are people relating to the game in the context of social worlds. Even if that, as Evan said, even if one of the things we're finding is get away from people, that changes because circumstances, including, you know, home life is changing radically with kids being homeschooled and people spending a lot more time in their homes. And so that changes how people interact with the game. And so we're trying to kind of figure out how that works.
And I think how a lot of this got started was because Tom had his undergrads in a course do a project on Animal Crossing. And that was sort of like the kicking off point, I think, for Tom thinking about Animal Crossing. And that has been sort of infused in a lot of the like beginning work that we were doing. So one of the things that a lot of his students were really interested in is how people were finding replacement things in Animal Crossing for things in real life. So like, how are people finding ways to be intimate in Animal Crossing? Like, because you can't actually like hug or give a high five, but you can like hit each other with nets. So there's like ways that like people are making sort of like approximate social interactions. And I guess that was like the bouncing off point. But what we're finding a lot is that the interactions people are having are not necessarily just sort of proxies for real life interactions, but new kinds of social interactions, both in Animal Crossing and Second Life that maybe don't have like actual world opponent.
People are actually quite surprised by what they like. Like they're not necessarily able to like anticipate what they like and always make sense of why they like it. Like Chandra, you know, I think like it's totally understandable why you like diving at night or in the rain, or, you know, like those things. There are some things that map onto, you know, like that are part of like a nostalgic, this is what I used to do. But I think that I found it very interesting to see like what people actually enjoy that has no connection to anything in their life. And so it's more about, you know, it might be like the repetitiveness of something, or just like the success, like, you know, where it's something where like you're like continuously successful that helps. Like, so it maps onto like other emotions and helps in that way. But yeah, like that was one thing I found surprising. And then the other thing that I've been like finding surprising, or like that just like always like astounds me, is like the ways in which people are actually able to make use of that world, right? Like where like the way that players use, especially Animal Crossing, which is actually quite like it's quite limited in what you're able to do, but like the way that people appropriate that, you know, and like are really able to like map on, you know, like people use it for their jobs, or, you know, like in the way that people are able to like map on like their own needs or like wants or just like pleasures onto this game and use it in ways that it was never intended to be used for, but like works super well. Like that's something that really like that I did not anticipate.
There have been a lot of really interesting ways in which people have connected through the game, or like attempted to make connections with new people or people that they know already. So some interesting things are that there are a lot of people who are going on first dates in Animal Crossing. I've been on a first date in Animal Crossing, so I have a little bit of experience, but the sheer amount of people that I've talked to that have done this, that have met someone on Tinder and then gone to visit their Animal Crossing island and like exchanged gifts and like, you know, rolled around in a bed together and stuff, that's super interesting. And also that I've talked to several people who are in long distance relationships, and they either visit each other's islands or they start a separate account on their Nintendo Switch so that they can have a house for their boyfriend or girlfriend on their island. So they're creating like a proxy for that relationship on the island. So I think that that's super interesting, whether it's like having the person actually there with you or having that feeling of them being there with you. I think people are just really wanting to find connections in various ways.
My perspective is that it doesn't seem to necessarily be changing relationships. It's more of a mode of crafting relationships. And I know that seems like a kind of a fine-tuned answer, but it seems like it's another tool in the toolbox for how to keep a relationship going or how to start a relationship. So there's the regular old phone that we could use to talk on if we wanted to. There's texting, there's, email, there's a whole bunch of different modes. There's social interactions on social media. And I feel like Evans mentioned earlier, the co-location. I think that's really, really important for friendships and for relationships of all kinds. And that is sort of the missing component that's not terribly present in a lot of the other modes of interacting with people at a distance, whether they're down the street, but, a pandemic street, or whether they're across the country.
I think people do flock to Animal Crossing to get away and like to stop thinking about certain things that are happening in the world, certainly. And I mean, like we talked about earlier about like the daily tasks and like interacting with villagers and like all that kind of stuff is stuff people do in the game to sort of like think about something else, right? And we've seen this in interviews before too. But also something that's happening is that people are engaging with these things differently in these worlds. So they're like, people were creating custom designs in Animal Crossing to make BLM signs in their yards around their house, or to make Black Lives Matter t-shirts to wear on their island or to share with other people, or even to have like pride celebrations or protests. There's also a like medical mask that you can wear in Animal Crossing. So I guess in the two things, like, yes, it is an escape for a lot of people, and to give them a sense of purpose in a time where it feels like every day you might not have a sense of purpose, but it's also at the same time giving people a new way to engage with it when they feel like maybe they can't go out in the street and protest, or maybe they, Pride was canceled and they need a new way to express pride in who they are. So yeah, I think those two things go hand in hand in a lot of ways.
Cool. And then I have Zucker. Sugar, it's like a German word, so I love it, who's like an octopus that looks like a suit. And I like them both because they're kind of morbid, because like an octopus that looks like the suit that you make out of it, who's also a foodie, it's like, I really like that. I appreciate the morbidity in that. And then Cole, and Cole is also a foodie. So they're both like lazy characters and they always talk about food. And Cole is like this black rabbit that has like really big eyes and just looks like out of a horror movie. And so I love them both because they're the sweetest character, but they're kind of creepy, and I enjoy that. And then my least favorite villager, again, I can't speak to like the whole list of villagers, but the one on my island is this hamster. And I think his name is Rodney. And he's been there forever and he just doesn't go. Like, he just like, every time somebody wants to move in the island, they're like, this one wants to go and this one wants to go. Robbie never comes up. And I'm like, why? And he's a snooty character. And he's like he's just like all interactions, like he always speaks like with this kind of self-assurance where I'm like, I would not like you in real life.
I think my favorite is Wolfgang. He's a cranky character. I like the cranky characters because they have really deep voices and I identify. And I like that they can go from being really extremely sweet in one moment to being kind of like a little rude in the next. I don't know. I find that comforting for whatever reason. And on my island, Wolfgang is my boyfriend. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Puck. He's a pink penguin who likes hockey, and I didn't want him on my island, but he invited himself there and he didn't leave until just recently. I didn't tell you all this. He finally left.
Oh,
congratulations.
So happy. But yeah, I really didn't like him because I just didn't like the way he looked.
I have a hard time with this. I guess I don't really connect or disconnect with most of my Islanders. If I had to pick one of my favorites, maybe Biff. He's a sporty type and he's a hippo. I do love hippos in general. He has like a unibrow, which is kind of fun. But he's actually, so he's kind of gruff, but he's actually kind of sweet too. And he's given me some really great clothes. And then I'd have to say that my least favorite, if I really had to pick one, actually isn't an Islander. I don't enjoy interacting with Isabel. I know.
Wow.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh no, I understand, Chandra. I understand.
No, I know that she's like the unofficial mascot of the game, but yeah, she stands between me and doing things in the mornings, and but she's also sweet, so she's fine.
It's villager hunting. So whenever a villager, not hunting them like to kill, hunting.
Thank you for the clarification.
Searching for a villager search. Rescue mission. I like when there's an empty spot on my island and I get to get a bunch of Nook Miles tickets and go searching for a villager that I want to bring to my island. I make a big thing of it. I like get a nice drink, sit down, make myself comfortable, get a snack, and just, there's something repetitive about it because you go to an island and then it's either a yes or a no. But sometimes I like go to the island and, you know, take some resources or like talk to them a little more before saying no. But yeah, I like that. I like the surprise of not knowing who you're going to get, and then maybe being surprised by yourself by being okay with someone who wasn't on your dreamy list, which has happened a couple of times to me.
Unless it's a pink penguin. That likes
I think because we're looking at the way socialization can happen through like during a very extreme time, you know, like it's like not unprecedented, but unprecedented for people who live now, I guess, to some degree. And it's like, and it's not happening in ways that people usually get to like work through extremes in a way. And I think that's something that will be very, like, that I think we will be able to like say something about that, like something meaningful, and really, because I do think that our research allows us to explore like what being social and what connecting and what like being communal means in a time where everything is supposed to be like physically separated.
I think one of the things that I'm excited about is not just, so second, whatever, everything that Sandy said, is not just the research within its own rights, but also, you know, it adds to an entire body of literature on studying virtual worlds. And to see how that works when you're in the middle of a pandemic that lays bare the inequities of social structures where not everybody has access to Wi-Fi, not everybody has access to this particular game console, let alone this game. And so to think about, to kind of plug this into those all the other research that's been happening and that continues to happen, and to think about it in ways that allow us to understand how the pandemic not only changes sociality and virtual worlds and kind of those relationships, but how it might illuminate new questions for the research going forward into thinking about virtual worlds.
I would echo what both Chandra and Sandy have said, and maybe add that I think our research is really important for understanding how, and no matter what, humans will always find ways to be close to one another. And the word that keeps coming up for us and that Tom keeps bringing up to us is proximity. And that, I think that's right. I think that it's all about being close in some way, whether that be over, you know, a FaceTime call or over Zoom, or some kind of like haptic touch device that people have been inventing. And I think that is something core to this project that is really wonderful, is that we're essentially finding ways that people are desperate and almost subconsciously finding ways to be close to one another. I think that's really cool. Involved in Animal Crossing and you've been playing and you would be open to being interviewed, we would love to speak to you about your experiences. We're not sort of targeting any particular population or anything right now. We're just, the doors are wide open in terms of who we're interviewing and talking to. So if you would like to be interviewed, please let us know. We're also going to be launching a survey soon, just to gather some really just ground level data from Animal Crossing players. And later we'll be doing something similar for Second Life players or Second Life inhabitants. So yeah, if you're welcome to be involved in that as well, that would be wonderful.
And you can contact us via our emails or email addresses or Tom's email, either way, or any of those ways that are good to us.